I funded, all of the beginning of the business, but you suddenly realize you need quite a few more £1 million than you first anticipated. So finding that is always a challenge. Again, genuinely dealing with investors over Teams and Zoom as opposed to meeting them is always, it's not ideal, quite frankly.
Do you mind me asking how much cash you really needed in this first?
So we didn't realize how much we needed. We thought we'd get it done for about $1 million or so, and it turned out to be quite substantially more than that.
Right.
But having said that, it's still under 10, which is, when you consider what we've achieved, is pretty incredible actually. And so we're very asset light. We utilize the partnerships in a big way, which we can talk through. But so I suppose so that was clearly a challenge. And then look, you'll always get the haters. We're very open. This isn't for everybody, right? This is it's our whole ethos is essentially taking cars that were loved. We're very careful on Porsche. Most of the cars we start with, they have to be low mileage because they're unloved. They're not low mileage because they're special. So it will be a Tiptronic narrow body 964 that's been left in a shed somewhere. It's not a turbo bodied masterpiece or an RS. So we start with a blank canvas that is not the prettiest, and create it into something beautiful. And I think that when people get their head around that, which is this car was never enjoyed anyway, it's less of an issue than people assuming we're doing it to a halo car of some description.
The haters part, was that pretty intense in the first couple of years?
It wasn't intense, but it was just funny. You got guys who just don't get it, and that's fine. Not everybody gets it. Not everybody gets everything, and we have to be mindful of that. So, very early days, 2021 really, which is when we first started taking cars to things like, again, Salon Privé, Concours of Elegance, things like that. There were those who were, it was probably 25% of people that came to see us said, "Oh, how dare you, what have you done," kind of thing.
Really?
Now it's less than 5%, because people have actually realized that we're not doing this for any kind of terrible reason. We're doing it because actually we think these cars deserve to be on the road and enjoyed and seen, and, they're rolling art. If you look at some of these beautiful shapes like the 911, the Pagoda, GT40, these are cars that have a place in history as icons. And if we're not careful, they will just be in history. And actually, we can get them out on the road and enjoy. That's right.
When the first car was done, what was the feeling?
It was brilliant. Yeah. So
do you remember it well?
No, very, very well. So there's two things actually. What I would say is that we actually built two first cars. So we actually had a kind of a rolling. Good from far, but far from good looking Porsche 911 Targa, which we put the kind of bill of materials in. We were testing it. It just wrapped. I mean, it was pretty flaky underneath. And I'll never forget. So I live in Surrey, and you probably know the A30. Very, very. There's some great roads in that area, but there's a very, very straight road that goes through Sunningdale and Virginia Water, and I pulled up at some lights and an Audi R8 V10 was next to me. I thought this would be funny. So I literally, floored it as you do. And I lost him. And in Sunningdale, he flashed me and pulled me over. He said, "What have you done to that car?" And we got chatting about that at that point in time. So that was our kind of prototype running. No one really knew it was an EV, but it was fun. It was very engaging. And then the very first kind of, client ready, or at least client looking ready, was a candy apple red 964 wide body that we launched at Joe Macari just down the road actually in sort of second half of 2021, and that was brilliant. So again, it was still COVID time. So the bizarre thing was that most journalists weren't traveling, and a lot of really good motoring journalists are British, right? They're based here in the UK. So thanks to our PR team, we managed to get quite a few journalists to come down and see us. Gordon Ramsay came down to see us. There was a load of people in and around Joe Macari. So all of a sudden, we created this buzz, which was fantastic for, let's be honest, a company that had zero marketing budget. We just built this car and wanted to show it. So that was fantastic. But not only that, people started writing about it, and then all of a sudden we started getting US press writing about us, and that just was that was a snowball from there.
And that car, was that built on your spec of what that wasn't made for a customer?
No, so it was our development car that we'd kind of started. Interestingly, that car is currently in California as a demo car. So it's a UK demo, but it's a roving demo. That's probably done 25,000 miles as an EV. 5,000 of those probably sideways, and Michelin are very, very happy with us because they we get a lot of tires, but that just shows again, these are not just toys to be kind of looked at. They can actually be very much, used and enjoyed.
Yeah. So by that point, the brand or business isn't making any cash.
No,
right?
right.
So was that the launch pad for
Yeah.
speaking with clients and finding clients?
Absolutely.
Did you have an idea of who, when you're kind of building the brand and as you're selecting a certain car and a certain market, and EV is its own market in a way?
That's right.
Did you kind of have a good idea of who would be the end consumer of the product?
We thought we did.
Okay.
Yeah. And it turned out to be partially right. So
Who did you think it was going to be?
So we thought that, you'd get car collectors that have, say, got a 964 in their collection. They don't really want to drive it. Why don't we create almost a carbon copy for you as an EV? You get to use this every day. And by the way, I've got an RS in the garage kind of thing. To a point, that's been true. So we've got a couple of those. More, the bigger piece that we have is, I guess, and it's an overused term, but we kind of have kind of thought leaders that are people that love design, they love technology, they love, the sort of a certain part of the car, whether it is from a design perspective, whether it's its history, whether it's the designer themselves. But then actually, they have an eye on sustainability, and they want to be as, conscious and, conscious as they possibly can. They may, by the way, still fly private, and there's that whole yin and yang balance. But actually, I'd say 90% of our clients have never driven or owned the original of what we end up building for them.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's somebody that loves the look of a 911
Yeah.
or loves the look of a Pagoda,
Yeah.
always promised themselves one, but they're not really car people.
Right.
So they are, they might be professional sports people.
Yeah.
They might be film directors in Hollywood. They might be tech billionaires. We've got a really eclectic mix of incredible clients. They might be a Middle Eastern prince. We've got all these incredible people that just love the look and the design of something, which is why we say it's rolling art, because it's a beautiful kind of piece of iconic history, but they want to be able to use it either every day or on a regular basis. And they're not the sort of people that you get in it and it lets them down when they've driven it to lunch. And that might well happen, with some of the classic cars as original.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, no, they know it's going to work. So it's kind of really interesting from that perspective that we assumed one thing. That is to a point true, but actually more we've got, which is the really interesting thing about us as a business, which we're not just focused on your car guys and girls. It's actually a very, very broad cross section.
And probably broader than people think it will be for them as well.
Absolutely right.